flow.
Welcome to episode 169 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. Now that the dust has finally settled on the Leafs getting knocked out of the playoffs, we're going to give you our thoughts on the Leafs as they head into the offseason, what we think is going to happen with Marner, with Tavares, where we think the Leafs should go from here. And of course, we're going to get into the Stanley Cup Final. It is a rematch of last season, Oilers versus Panthers. We're going to preview the series, give you our official predictions. So I absolutely promise you want to stay tuned until the very end of this episode. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, as always, there is no place I'd rather be than recording a pod with you. Big episode, man. Stanley Cup Final preview. We do one of these every year, and just like every previous episode like this we've done, the Toronto Maple Leafs are not involved. Tier, but not like we had the confidence that they'd be here anyway. But I'm excited for this show. Obviously, I'm sure like a lot of Leafs fans have made a point to watch all the pressers at the end of the season. You try to get the read as best as you can of like what people are thinking, as much as they are robots for the most part. And talking about a Stanley Cup Final that I'm really, really excited for. But before we move on to that, Bruno, you got something to share with everybody.
I have some very important news to share. It's actually some sad news, to be honest with all of you. But episode 169 is going to mark the final episode of the GFP podcast. I promise nothing bad has happened. Lepore and I have just come together and decided that we're going to shut things down after this episode. Now, I don't want to say this is the absolute end of GFP. Maybe it'll come back in the future at some point. But as of right now, we've made the decision that this is going to be our final episode. It's sad, but I'm also happy too, because we started this thing back in January 2021. And you know what? Even going back before that, for those of you who don't know, Lepore and I met on a reality television show. I know it sounds insane and it sounds fake, but it's true. We met on season 5 of Gillette Draft of the Search for Canada's Next Sportscaster. Okay. That was back in 2013. That's how we met. We stayed friends ever since. And during COVID, we said, screw it. Like, let's just start a Leafs podcast. We had no idea where this thing was going to go. We kind of just started it for fun. We ended up getting brand deals and working with a lot of different companies, and we got to do some very cool things. And, I didn't think it would last 169 episodes, but here we are. So I promise we'll get into our thoughts on the Leafs and the Cup Final, but I just wanted to share that news with GFP Nation. And thank you, honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, because it's meant the world to us that you have supported us and followed us over the last almost 5 years of doing this podcast. So just thank you, honestly, from the bottom of our hearts. And Lepore, I'll let you chime in with anything you want to say as well.
Yeah, as Bruno said, when we got together and said, let's start a Leafs podcast, it was for fun. I had zero expectations of views, followers, sponsorship deals, all that type of thing. It was just, it's COVID. We're all locked up. Let's have a blast doing something we enjoy anyway. And it's been something that's lasted quite a while. And I'll never forget like this journey that Bruno and I have been through. And thank you, everyone. If you loved us, thank you so much. Thank you for all the positive feedback. And if you hated us, thank you even more, because that's what this space is about. It's about argument. It's about debate. It's about hate comments, passion, man. Passion fuels all of this. And that's why Bruno and I always embrace both positive and negative feedback from people, because that's why we're here. And that's why we're all hockey fans. And if we weren't passionate about this stuff, we wouldn't bother, expressing that we want to rip somebody's head off. So like I said, if you supported the show and liked us, thank you so much. And if you threw shit at us every chance you got, thank you even more.
Well said, Lepore. And honestly, that's where it all comes from, is the passion for hockey, for the Leafs. That's why we started this thing. We're massive Leaf fans. We're massive hockey fans. And Lepore and I are massive sports fans in general. I feel like the two of us could have done a podcast on really any sport we wanted to, or any, I guess, team we wanted to. But of course, we decided to do it on the Toronto Maple Leafs. They still haven't won shit, of course, and who knows how long we're going to be waiting. But like I said, I don't want to say this officially ends the GFP podcast. We might be back in the future. You never know. We might pop up in a year or 2 years or 10 years from now. I don't know. But as of right now, this will be our final episode. So thank you. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for listening and watching us for the last 5 years. All right, Lepore, let's get into the hockey talk for the last time.
Yeah.
So the dust is finally settled because the last time we recorded was literally like hours after Game 7 between the Leafs and Panthers. And I don't want to say that we were overly emotional. Like, I think we came in with level heads and, I think we gave a pretty good breakdown, honestly, of where we thought, the team was headed and just the series in general against Florida. But now that the dust has settled even more and we've had like 2 or 3 weeks, to kind of digest everything, where do you stand right now in terms of where the Leafs should go moving forward? And you can bring up anything you want, whether it's Marner, Tavares, whoever. I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's an off season. I mean, definitely up for debate if this is the biggest off season of the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, because we haven't really had unrestricted free agents that had the chance to walk away. And probably the most popular debate among not only Leafs fans, but hockey fans was the makeup and how this team was built and what they should do with these guys who essentially were supposed to spearhead this team to win a Stanley Cup, and they failed. So it's hitting us hard because this is likely now. It can happen more than ever before. I mean, there's always, trade so-and-so or trade this person. No, but it never happened. And a trade was always unlikely, at least in my mind anyway. But here we are. Mitch Marner, who was drafted a year before Austin Matthews, and then John Tavares, the biggest free agent signing, I think, in history of the league still. I don't think anyone's cracked that number. Like, in terms of the money given out, they could walk away. So change is more of a possibility than ever before. Maybe we're stopping the podcast at the wrong time. All this content that's going to come out. As far as the signings themselves, we've crystal balled it in the past. I think John's going to sign. I think the two sides will find a deal that works for both parties and both sides will be happy. I think the Marner discussion is like books will be written. Books will be written on this guy's hockey life growing up, London Knights, Toronto Maple Leafs, the hometown kid, the lack of success with all the expectation, still putting up big regular season numbers, all that stuff, the debate about this guy. So whatever does happen, there's going to be a lot of heat from one side or the other. We're all on Twitter, and there are still people that think it'd be crazy for the Leafs not to re-sign him and not essentially give him what he wants, because it's hard to find players that good. And there are other people that will be ripping their hair out and banging their heads against the table if Mitch Marner signs. And I don't know. Like, I don't know what I want necessarily. And I'll say what I've always said, and I'm sure I said it 50 times on this show. People would ask, should the Leafs re-sign Marner? And my answer was, I'll let you know when they replace that money, if it was the right decision. Because just getting rid of him doesn't make the team better. It has to be replaced properly. And I think everybody would agree with that. So that's when I would make my decision. Whether or not I think it's going to happen, this is where I think like the discussion's fascinating, because everything makes sense. One side can say, here's this kid from Toronto on pace to be the highest scorer in the history of the franchise. Who knows if they can fucking win something. On his trajectory, there's a banner at the top of the arena with his number on it, and there's a statue outside that building. Okay. Now I'm going to get personal with it. Okay. And I'm not a professional athlete, newsflash. And I've never negotiated a multi-million-dollar contract for someone, for me to skate around with a
I'm
puck.
surprised, Lepore.
I
Surprised to
know.
hear that.
I know. Most people are. But I know I myself, I wouldn't be able to walk away from that. I would not. The idea that like my kids, my grandchildren could be walking past Scotiabank Arena or whatever it's called, and whatever it's called decades from now, and there be a statue of me outside, a banner in the rafters with my number. I could not walk away from that if the opportunity was presented to me to stay for some money, or like, okay, life's going to be easier somewhere else, right? I wouldn't be able to do it, but some people don't care about that stuff. And I'm sure as I was giving this spiel, people were arguing for the other side. And I would totally get it. If he wants to go to Vegas, or, the rumors are Chicago, San Jose, you're hearing different teams. It makes sense too. He's a free agent. He's entitled to go where he wants. And the funny thing is, like, people are bringing up how he just had a son. It could go both ways, because it could go the side of, oh, like him and his wife, like, you know what? We just had a baby. We don't want to move. We're comfortable here. Everything I just listed about him being the Toronto kid playing for the Leafs. They could say all that, but they could also say, you know what? We just had a baby. The timing of my contract ending is pretty coincidental. Let's start a new life somewhere else with our child. So I would totally get that. And whatever Mitch decides, I won't be surprised. And who knows, maybe this conversation's all for naught, because maybe Treliving's not even going to offer him a deal at this point. Maybe he's done. But we've spoken about Mitch Marner a lot on this show, and his contract over the last year has probably been the thing we've spoken most about. So it's fitting that we're talking about it on the last show. But I'm kind of excited to find out what's going to happen, because it's either going to be, if the guy commits, if he wants to stay, and it's a reasonable number, it's something to be happy about. It really is. Like, this is a good team. Yeah, I know they've failed, but it means, like, he still wants to be here. And like, that's step one. This guy wants to be here. But if he leaves, well, it's going to be friggin' exciting, because, like, what do we do now? Like, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs are a new team next year. And it sounds weird because it's one guy, but it's a cap league. And when you free up that kind of cap space, you can do a lot. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Mitch. What I want, I'm not sure. What I think is going to happen, I'm not sure. But hopefully we find out soon. I mean, I don't know when we're going to find out. If he signs right away on July 1, that'll be interesting, eh? Imagine, like, it's like going
the signs on July 1,
or even it goes into the summer and there's like nothing. That'd be pretty fun too.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get a read on the situation. Like, I've been going back and forth on this. It's really hard to try to figure out what the hell the Leafs are going to do. I have an idea of what they want to do. And again, I talked about this even on the last show, how Treliving kind of showed us his cards, right? He tried to trade Mitch Marner at the trade deadline for Mikko Rantanen. And I think one of the reasons for that is not only did he believe that Mikko Rantanen was a better player and would be able to help the Leafs more in the playoffs, I think Treliving, got the inkling that Marner doesn't want to re-sign here.
Like, doing his job.
I think he just felt that was the best move for the organization. There's something that's still telling me that Marner, like, something in my gut is telling me he wants to leave. And I know people have talked about, some of like the harassment and bullying he's gone through. And I don't want to get into all that. Like, all of these top end professional athletes deal with that to a certain degree. Okay. Especially when you're in a passionate market like Toronto, you're going to run into situations like that. Now, based on some of the stories that I've heard, there are definitely people who have crossed the line. There are definitely some psychos out there who should not be doing the things that they're doing to any athlete, let alone any person in general.
Like social media stuff, or even
like people just like, I don't know. There's been some crazy stories out there how this guy's gotten harassed, like how people like know where he lives and stuff like that, and just some like weird shit.
Okay.
I don't want to get into like any of like the details. I'm sure you could just kind of do a quick Google search and maybe go go on Reddit or things like that and maybe figure out some of the things that have been going on. I don't want to dig into any of that. And I'm not making an excuse for Mitch Marner, but I could see him being like, you know what? This thing has run its course. I've done a lot for this franchise. I lived out my dream. I don't want to be in this fishbowl anymore. Get me the hell out of here. Now, I don't think he's just going to go sign with some like terrible team. I really can't go see, I can't see him going to sign with like Chicago or San Jose. Like those teams, even if they add Mitch Marner, are still going to be terrible. Even like Anaheim, like I don't know. I just can't see him signing with a team like that. Um, Listen, here's the problem. It's that there's really not much out there to replace him with via free agency. Everyone's talking about Sam Bennett and Nikolai Ehlers. First of all, would you be comfortable giving Sam Bennett like $10 million a year on a long-term deal for a guy who's like a perennial 50-point player? And I get it. He's a beast in the playoffs, and I would love to have that guy on my team. But you also have to consider the price here. You can't just be like, oh, I love everything about Sam Bennett and everything he does in the playoffs, and let me just sign him to a 7-year deal for $10 million a year. Like, I think that would be kind of insane. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, Lepore, if the Panthers even move off of him. Like, if he's asking for something crazy, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers were like, listen, we love you. Thanks for bringing us a cup, maybe 2 Stanley Cups, but we're not paying you $10 million a year. Yeah. Now, I think he's probably going to end up re-signing in Florida for something a lot less than we think. Very similar.
Hashtag Florida Panthers.
Yeah, very similar to what happened with Sam Reinhart. That's how I see it playing out. So if the Leafs don't sign Sam Bennett, Nikolai Ehlers, people have been talking about him as well as like the other big fish in free agency. He doesn't step up in the playoffs either. If you go look at his playoff numbers, not very good. Very similar to what these Leafs guys have done over the years. So it's not as simple as like, let's just go pluck guys out of free agency. I think if Marner decides to move on, I think the play is to actually look ahead to the next free agent class. So the problem is the Leafs might take a bit of a step back. They might have all this cap space. They might not be as good next year, but maybe it sets them up better for the future. I'm not saying that I don't like Mitch Marner and I don't want him back. I have just come to the point now here, Lepore, where like, I think it's crazy to not accept that this team needs change. We have been Mr. like we have been the Run It Back podcast. Run it back with everybody. This team's so good. They're so talented. Eventually they're going to break through. But it gets to a point here where you just can't keep running it back. You got to give this thing a little bit of a different look. You still have Matthews. You still have Nylander under contract. People are saying I wouldn't even mind moving on from Tavares. Now, the center market is not good either. So I actually think it's more likely that Tavares will be back on a hometown discount, even though I've talked in the past, like Steven Stamkos just signed last year $8 million over 4 years with Nashville. He's the exact same age as John Tavares. He had a worse season than John Tavares. Like John Tavares just scored 38 goals this year. He was unbelievable this year. So I wouldn't be so quick to assume that he's taking some crazy hometown discount. But if I had to put like a percentage on it, I think there's a higher likelihood that Tavares will be back. And if I had to plant my flag and answer right now, if I think Marner's going to be back based on everything that's happened, I think Marner's going to move on and sign somewhere else. I really do.
Okay.
So that's where I stand on things. Listen, if the Leafs lose Mitch Marner, there have been people being like, oh, this team's going to be shit. They're going to miss the playoffs. The Leafs are going to be fine. If Matthews is healthy next year, if William Nylander continues doing what he's doing, the decor's in place, the goaltending's in place, like I don't think this team is suddenly just going to drop off the face of the earth. Maybe they drop into a wild card spot, like maybe Ottawa leapfrogs them. Who knows what's going to happen with Florida after this season? Like they might lose Ekblad and Bennett, and they might have to make, they're probably going to lose Brad Marchand. Like there's a lot of guys that they could lose too, right? So I still think the Leafs are going to be a playoff team. They might just not be as good, obviously, because if you lose a guy like Mitch Marner, say what you want about him, call him soft and say he's not a winning player. The guy just had 100 points. He's a great two-way player. Like we saw what he did in the Four Nations with Connor McDavid. It's, that's a big loss. So I think that the Leafs can figure out a way forward with all the cap space that opens up. They might just have to be a little bit patient. The question is though, Lepore, is Keith Pelly and Brad Treliving, like, do they have the stomach to be patient? I don't know. I just don't. I hope that they don't spend that money like crazy people and make terrible decisions. And then one last point I'll make: the salary cap is projected to go up by like over $20 million over the next 3 years, which is a big factor in this as well. So at the end of the day, I think Tavares is probably going to be back because there's really no other centerman out there. And I think Marner is going to move on. Those are my official predictions.
Yeah, especially with the free agent, like you mentioned, the next free agency class, and guys can resign. I was trying to find the list on my phone because I snapped it, but it's insane. Like guys, like you didn't. Everyone knows, oh, McDavid is available. There's like, oh, Kyle Connor. Like the list goes on and on and on and on. And these guys, a lot of them will just resign during the season or whatever. But if you're a GM, I mean, your job is to look ahead and evaluate what you can do. I mean, you're an asset manager is what you are. So a lot up in the air for the Leafs and a lot of teams. But I got to say, Bruno, looking at that list, it was like, picturing guys in the blue and white.
Yeah, like Kirill Kaprizov. Like there's some absolute monsters who are free agents in a year from now. And listen, could the Leafs make a trade? You know, there's even been rumblings out there like, oh, are they going to trade for Nazem Kadri and bring him back? Like, I mean, I think we all love Kadri. Like that guy loved being a Leaf, and I think he has that dog in him. You know, you hear that saying a lot. Like he's one of those guys that probably, you know, the Leafs probably should have never got rid of in the first place. So could they make a deal like that? Yeah, I think so. Like Brad Treliving's a very active guy. He's always, you know, we always hear about that guy that he's calling everyone in the league. He's always in on everything. So I would never rule out a trade. I just feel like the Leafs might have to be a little bit patient here if Marner decides to move on, and maybe not just go spend everything right away, and maybe look ahead to next year's free agent class. All right, Lepore. Yeah. Anything else on the Leafs, or you want to move on?
Let's move on. Stanley Cup Final, man.
It's time for a quick break for a word about Manscaped. We all know the drill, fellas. No matter how many times you ask, Dad's not going to tell you what he wants for Father's Day. He's just not going to do it. And that's why Manscaped is taking the guesswork out of gifting this year. With Father's Day right around the corner, there's no better time to upgrade his grooming game with the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and the Beard Hedger electric trimmers. So get your father exactly what he needs. And the way you're going to do that is by using our exclusive code GFP15 for 15% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Lepore, I mean, you'd just be crazy to not gift your father something from Manscaped for the big day.
What else would you do? Summer's coming up. Your dad's going to be on the beach in Calabria rocking the Speedo. He's got to be clean, man. As Bruno said, head to the website GFP15 for 15% off and free shipping. Make your dad a happy guy on Father's Day.
Oh, I love that, man. Rocking the Speedo in Calabria.
Buddy.
I could see all the Italian fathers just they just don't care. They just really don't care.
Zero fucks given, Bruno.
All right, so get 15% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP15 at manscaped.com. Head to manscaped.com for 15% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP15. All right, let's do it. So Stanley Cup Final, rematch of last season, Oilers versus Panthers. Just looking at the betting odds now, the Oilers are slight favorites to win the series. They're priced at minus 124, whereas the Panthers are plus 107. So it's pretty tight. Oilers have home ice, which they didn't have last season. So give it to us, Lepore. Who do you think is going to win the Stanley Cup? And listen, we can do a little preview back and forth, but I want to hear who you think is going to win the cup.
So, man, it's the last episode. People are going to be calling me out for being a cop out in the comments. But I look back at recent Stanley Cup finals, and for the most part, and this is not being ego, I'm just being honest. Like I kind of knew who was going to win. Like the Tampa years, I was like, no, Tampa's got it. Colorado, you knew it was their year. Vegas, like I knew Florida was like seriously beaten up, and like they were on Florida was the miracle run teams. So you thought, no, Vegas is going to slam the door on them. in this one, and I will say, even last year, and it got exciting at the end, but I was pretty confident Florida was going to get it done. I believed in that team. Going into this one, I mean, there are so many variables of what can happen. So this is the first one in a while that I'm not very confident in my answer, and nothing will surprise me. No result will necessarily surprise me, but I still cannot get away from picking the Florida Panthers. There's still that thing in me that they just know how to win, and there's no explanation. They'll just get her done, and they can play different styles. They know how to suit themselves to opponents. And if we're going to go matchup wise, I mean, like, Edmonton's got a shit ton of talent. Their depth is stepping up at the right time. All the former Leafs look great. Shocker. But I look at the things that matter most in a series like this, and underrated coaching. I mean, everyone knows, yeah, coaching is important, but I don't think it gets talked about enough in terms of matchups, kind of like how it does in the NFL. Paul Maurice or Knoblauch?
Paul Maurice all day. Knoblauch's a good coach, but
he must be. Maurice. He must be. But yeah, I'm going to bet on Paul Maurice. Bobrovsky or Skinner?
Bob all day.
Yeah, it's not. Look, this isn't even a thing, and I think Oilers fans would be like, "Yep, that's accurate." And Skinner's had like the weirdest playoffs ever, so who knows what's going to happen in this final series. But the advanced stats geek in me is kind of coming out too, because he was fucking terrible. And then not only was he bad, but like, he looked bad. Like, he was a fish out of water, flopping around. He couldn't find his post, just awful. And then he went on that ridiculous heater where he had like 3 shutouts in 4 games.
Like, you can't even explain the stretch that guy went on.
So now it's that thing in me that's like, well, now it's kind of got to go the other way, or at least even. Like, it's not.
The clock might be striking midnight on Stuart Skinner.
Yes. So with that, I lose a lot of confidence. And then you throw in the fact of this team's won before. Business, man. Like, the Florida Panthers are all business and never get rattled. I can't bet against them. If the Oilers win, way to go. They'll learn it. They'll learn it against a team like the Florida Panthers. No one could say that, especially with their run. This could be one of the most difficult runs ever. That a team is like a gauntlet. A team has had to go through to win the Stanley Cup if Edmonton can pull this off. But I got all the respect in the world for the Oilers, and I think they can do it. But if I'm going to pick a winner, I'm going to pick the Florida Panthers, and number of games is tough. I will say the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup in 6 games, game 6 in overtime.
To be honest, Lepore, I'm pretty surprised that you picked the Florida Panthers. We did not, listen, when me and Lepore do podcasts, we don't talk beforehand. We're not texting each other here's all the points we're going to say, and you say this and I say that. Honestly, we never really know what's going to come out of our mouths. We save it all for when the camera goes on. I thought 100% you were going to take the Edmonton Oilers to win.
Why?
I don't know. I felt like you were going to take them. You know what, Lepore? What's interesting, it feels like everyone is on the Edmonton Oilers. Does it not feel like that? Anytime you tune into TSN or Sportsnet, or you're on Twitter or social media, it just feels like everyone's saying this is the year. How could McDavid possibly let it get through his fingertips again when he got so close? He's one of the greatest players we've ever seen. It's his time. They finally have depth, and they have defense and goaltending, and they're so buttoned up and this and that. I don't buy it, man. I just, and listen, not to say that any of that is false. A lot of that is true. Their depth scoring has stepped up. They're defensively, they've been a lot better than in past seasons. Stuart Skinner was unbelievable against the Dallas Stars, and even going back into when he regained the net from Calvin Pickard. It's just crazy the stretch that guy's gone on. It just feels like in these moments when everybody's on one team, it's hard to kind of remember how good the Florida Panthers are and what they're all about. And that's when you should be pivoting to the other side. And I'm right there with you, Lepore. I think Florida now weirdly is kind of underrated with all the love that the Oilers are getting. And I think not having Zach Hyman, I think that's a massive loss
No debate.
for the
Yeah.
Oilers. And listen, they went through the entire playoffs without Ekholm, and every series, we were saying like the Oilers don't have Ekholm, they're screwed. They're going to lose to the Kings. No Ekholm against Vegas, they're going to lose that series. We don't know if Ekholm's going to be back against the Stars. The Stars are deeper, they're more talented, they're probably going to beat them. The Oilers have shut up everybody. But it gets to a point, man, where you run into another juggernaut that has three lines that are chugging. And they like the Florida Panthers, man. Like, I think one of the biggest mismatches in this series is going to be the depth at forward. Like, everyone's talking about the depth scoring for Edmonton. You lose Hyman, who is arguably like your number one depth piece, obviously outside of McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, that guy has been incredible basically every playoff run since he's been an Edmonton Oiler. So you lose him, and then you look at that third line on the other side. Luostarinen, Marchand, and Lundell. They have been unbelievable the entire playoffs. Like, they as a line are like outscoring the opposition at 5-on-5 by like an insane rate. So I just think it's going to be a very tough matchup for the Oilers. Sure, McDavid and Draisaitl can go nuclear and potentially win the series themselves. But I think you're running into a team here that is so deep at forward. And I think Edmonton's going to have a tough time because they aren't really going to have any answers. Like when the Panthers are rolling 9 guys deep up front, and sure, their fourth line is fine too, but it's that top 9 that is so good. And I even look back to last year's Cup Final, Lepore. Like Florida won, obviously Florida went up 3-0, then lost 3 games, then won 2-1 in game 7. But if you look at like the final stats of that series, like it's not like Florida put on an offensive clinic. Evan Rodriguez was the Panthers' leading scorer in the Cup Final last year. He had 4 goals and 7 points in 7 games. Then you go down the list. Barkov only had 5 points in 7 games. Lundell, 5 points in 7 games. Verhaeghe, Reinhart, and Bennett only had 4 points. Matthew Tkachuk had 1 goal and 3 points. Like, they don't beat you with, like, a couple guys just going crazy offensively. As you said, man, they just know how to get the job done. And that's what they've been doing basically the last 3 years. Like, I don't think, Barkov is suddenly going to go crazy and get like 10 points in 7 games. It's going to be a very methodical effort. It's going to be those top 9 forwards chugging along, getting the job done. They have Bobrovsky. I think they're better defensively than Edmonton. I think Florida is going to go back to back as well. And, I hate when we agree on this show, but I had the exact same thing in mind, Lepore. I got Panthers in 6.
There you go. Why not, Bruno? It's the last episode. We might as well do what we've always done. But it's got a feeling, and partly because of the break, like this insane break of no play that, NHL, I've been trying to figure you out my entire life and I still can't. It's got a feeling of a Super Bowl. And you nailed it when you went on your rant about how everyone, and we're in Canada, so the media is going to talk about the Oilers, but similar to the beginning of the season and the offseason, people were acting like it was a foregone conclusion that the Oilers were going to win the Stanley Cup. It was like, oh, this is their year. And you went on that rant, Bruno. And I find it funny now. I've noticed a few journalists have brought up, well, I picked the Oilers to win when the season started. It's like, I'm sure a few weeks ago and a few months back, you were like, nobody picked them.
Pivoted off them at the start of the playoffs. And now they're like, oh, you know what? But at the start of the season, I was all in on Edmonton.
But it's got that Super Bowl feel because of the long break. And also, I feel like every Super Bowl, they just grip onto a story of like a certain player or something.
Yeah, and it's the McDavid storyline.
Sure, exactly. Kind of like the most recent one. It was like here was the Philadelphia Eagles stacked team, like literally one of the best built teams ever, legitimately. And the talk for 2 weeks was Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, none of it was.
Yeah, none of it matters. It's Patrick Mahomes, and they got their ass kicked. And I'm not saying, I predicted that. I just find that's happened in a lot of Super Bowls. The first one, Manning with Denver against Seattle. Oh, here's Manning. No, blowout. Just no, we were all wrong, and Vegas wins, right? Like that's what we're all getting at here. So yeah, I've had that feeling too of that there's all this talk about Florida, and they're kind of getting to that point where you called it underrated. It's just like, are you forgetting who's on the other side? Like, are you legitimately forgetting who's on the other side? This team is like all the cliches, built for the playoffs, know how to win. And I hate when people have the take like McDavid will not be denied. He doesn't get a choice if
McDavid can't play 60 minutes. He can't be on the ice the entire game. He's only gonna be playing like 22 minutes a night, everybody.
And there's also the other team trying to beat him. And with what I'm getting at is if I had to pick a group of players that I just look at and I'm like, they won't be denied, I'm picking Florida. Because like you mentioned the third, like Brad Marchand wants that fucking Stanley Cup. And he's willing to do anything to get it. Now, I'm not saying players on the Oilers will not, but again, let's not forget who the opponent on the other side is, because that's a hell of a team.
And let's not forget what they've done to star players. So this year in the playoffs, in round one, they held Kucherov and Point to 2 goals in 5 games. Then the Panthers held Matthews and Marner to 2 goals in 7 games. Then, well, you know what? Actually, the duo that had the most success against Florida, believe it or not, was actually Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis, from a goal standpoint. Right? Even though that series, like, it was wrapped up, they went up 3-0. And then I think Aho scored like 2 goals in the final game. But even if you go back to last year's Cup Final, the Panthers held McDavid and Draisaitl to 3 goals in 7 games. Like, this is just what they do. They find a way, and mostly it's because Barkov is just like glued to the other team's best player. And Reinhart, who was another Selke Trophy finalist, Barkov actually won the Selke. I think the votes came out today, right? Barkov.
Yeah, weird how they do it now. How it just comes out before the award show. I find it very strange.
It's just like, man, this is just what this team does. And listen, I think Edmonton's a great team. Like when you look at the 5-on-5 numbers for both of these teams, like they're both elite at 5-on-5. Like both of these teams have been controlling play throughout the playoffs. Like I don't think anyone's going to get like caved in at 5-on-5. I just have a lot more trust in the Florida Panthers. Like I said, better goaltending, better defense, more depth up front. And I think that they have the personnel to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl. And not having Zach Hyman, man, that's a huge, huge loss. So everyone's talking about it, and you nailed it. Like, it was the same thing with the Super Bowl this year. Mahomes, Andy Reid, like, how can they possibly lose? Mahomes is on track to be the GOAT. Even I got duped by that. Like, the Eagles were stacked from top to bottom, offensively, defensively, and then they blow out Kansas City in the Super Bowl. You know what was funny in that game? Everyone was even talking about Saquon Barkley. You know what I did? I put a bet on Saquon Barkley to not score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and he didn't. It's just reminding me, like, there's all these parallels where it's like when everyone is on one team and everyone is just attached to one narrative, go the other way.
Yeah,
that's probably the way to go. And I know that it sounds like an overly simplistic way to kind of describe it, but I just think people are kind of forgetting how good the Panthers are, and I will be betting on them as underdogs in this series.
Attaboy. Do you remember the show? I mean, back to like, it still exists, right? Sirius satellite radio, Mike and Mike mornings on ESPN, Greening and Golick. And I remember maybe they were talking about a Super Bowl, and Greening, he's like, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in this industry for a long time. He's like, everybody go to Vegas, look around. These hotel and casino resorts are worth like billions of dollars. Some of them have like bigger GDPs than major countries. They're not built that way because people win. Everyone's going one way, go the other way. It's just how it is, man. And that's not me, guys. I keep repeating myself. This is not me saying Edmonton has no chance or we're going to bang on nail this. But I think it's kind of funny how the media is just pushing. And you know what? I'll say this, man. When we talked about the Super Bowl, I've had the theory that Vegas and the major networks in the States are in cahoots. Okay, because it's like sometimes you're just watching and it's like, oh, this team has no chance. And it's like, yeah, they do. What are you talking about? Like, I remember, well, you know what another one was? Remember, I mentioned Manning losing when they beat Carolina. For 2 weeks, Carolina's going to blow Denver out.
Cam Newton, MVP, 15-1.
Yeah, the MVP, all this. Denver just beat New England. If they beat New England, they could beat anybody. What are we talking about here? And it's not to say, oh, they were going to win for sure. It's that, no, this team's got a chance. We got a game, folks. But yeah, Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers, like I said, I am really looking forward to it because I'm picking Florida, but it's not a slam dunk pick. Like I said, I've had in previous years. I haven't decided if I'm going to bet. I mean, you're more risky and adventurous than I am, Bruno. And you already said you're going to bet, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I can't do it. I can't bet against them.
Yeah, I can't either. And this isn't even because they knocked out our Leafs and we're like, oh man, like, this they knocked out the Leafs. They're going to go on to win the cup. Like, I just go up and down the roster. They're just a better team. And Edmonton's a great team. I'm not saying they're some schleb and they shouldn't be in the cup final. Like, they're more than deserving of being here. But when I go up and down, even looking at the decor, like, are you kidding? Everyone's talking about like, oh, the Oilers, they have all these puck movers now with Klingberg and Jake Wallman. Go compare it to Florida's decor. Like, what are we even doing here? Seth Jones, Aaron Ekblad, Gustav Forsling, Nico Mikkola, who's like an absolute monster with what he's able to do defensively, even offensively at times, where he just like jumps into the play. Like, I don't know. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, I just think Florida's a better team from top to bottom. So yeah, I'll be backing them to win the cup.
Just thinking,
yeah,
I was just thinking really quick. You haven't heard like Conn Smythe talk yet, or at least I haven't.
Yeah, I've heard some. People are like, "Oh, bet on if you're gonna place a bet, just bet McDavid to win the Conn Smythe because like it's better
if you're gonna
odds
bet
than the
Edmonton to
Oilers
win
winning
if
the
you're
cup."
gonna bet Edmonton to win, it's like the Mahomes thing. If you're gonna bet them to win the Super Bowl, you might as well bet him to win the MVP.
Yeah.
But on the side of Florida, and like that's a compliment to them. Where I don't know.
Honestly, it's almost like impossible to pick a Conn Smythe winner on their team because like there's like five guys who could win it.
Could McDavid win it 2 years in a row?
Absolutely. But McDavid can absolutely win the Conn Smythe thing. It'd have to go like 6 or 7 games. If the Panthers win in 5, like I don't think he has any chance.
Okay.
But yeah, like literally, like Bennett could win it. Barkov could win it. Bobrovsky can win it. Brad Marchand can win the freaking Conn Smythe. Like if he has a great series, like there's a lot of guys who are in play on Florida to win the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, like obviously it was a talking point last year with McDavid, and the numbers he put up, and the discussion of, well, if you lose, do you want it? Do you even want it? And there was the talk. Some guys were like, no, I wouldn't want anything to do with it if my team lost in the Stanley Cup Final. Then there was the take of it's still a huge accomplishment, and not many guys have won it as losers. So take it. Good for you. It's something that will always be remembered. If it comes up again, it's legit. Like, don't give it to me. Like, I don't want to be that guy in the history books of 2 straight years losing in the Stanley Cup Finals and winning the MVP of the playoffs. Like, please, I don't want to be remembered for that.
If there's any guy who's capable of doing that, it's Connor McDavid.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Which is a testament to how unbelievable that guy is. But Lepore, before we wrap things up, any final thoughts as we close out the final episode of GFP?
I'll just kind of echo what I said earlier. Thanking everyone for watching, for listening, for commenting. Thank you to all the sponsors we've had over the years who've helped this show keep going. And I'm just grateful, man. Like I'm grateful that I get to look back at this and had an absolute blast. They always say, like, when you're on your deathbed laying there, you're not going to be saying, man, I wish I bought this. It's all, if you have a regret, it's going to be about an experience, because experiences are the greatest gift we can get. And this has been absolutely amazing. It's been so fun, and it's kind of bittersweet because, yeah, I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't some sadness in me that it's ending, or at least ending for the time being. But there was just so much positive that I'll look back and think, yeah, we wrapped it up, but we had a great time. We interacted with many people. And the craziest thing to me about this experience was, I'll say this as a host of a YouTube podcast, I would do my best not to go through the comments. And I would suggest that for any person who is in this space, because most of it's negativity. It's not good for your self-esteem. Like, let's call it how it is. And not good for your anger and frustration. But to go through the comments once in a while and see, like, if I remember correctly, the first jersey giveaway we did, was for a Marner jersey, and the winner was from Kansas. It was like, what? Like someone from Kansas, like is a Leafs fan and listens to our show. And then I remember people commenting because we always said, okay, put where you are. Put where give us your answer and tell us where you are. And you see like Switzerland, New Zealand, the stuff like you fucking like listening to our podcast. And I know like in today's world, it's a definite possibility because of the amazing access we have. But it just made me feel great about it and just like prouder about like what we were able to build here. And like I said, it's bittersweet and there is some sadness in me that we won't be recording a show next week. But I mean, the good old days are the good old days for a reason. And I'll definitely look back at my experience recording this show as the good old days, man.
Yeah, it's only positive on my end as well, man. And you said it, like, to see all of the comments when we would do the jersey giveaways where people were actually situated and that, they weren't just, it wasn't just everyone in Toronto. Like there was people all over the world who were messaging us who wanted to win one of those jerseys. I think we did like at least 3 or 4 jersey giveaways. And those were all 100% legit. For the people who won those jerseys, they can, they can tell you. It's not like we were sending some fake jersey or that whole thing was a scam. Like we were sending actual authentic Leaf jerseys to people. But listen, like I go through all of the comments, whether it's good or bad. And there's, like Lepore said, there's a lot of negativity out there, which I don't mind. I mean, I've been on social media for a long time and, people spew some outrageous things my way on all the other platforms that I'm on. But man, going through some of the positive comments on this podcast, it puts a smile on your face. Like, people who would tell us like, you guys are the best Leafs podcast out there. Like you guys are better than like 32 Thoughts on Sportsnet. And listen, you can disagree. Maybe you don't like us, but I think there was a lot of people who really enjoyed this show. And listen, I'm going to be honest, Lepore, like I think this was a really good show. Like not to pump our own tires, but I was really happy with the product that we put out on a weekly basis. I think, everything came from the heart. We always took the time, and I said to me and Lepore, like we wouldn't prepare our answers beforehand, but we would do our own individual prep. Like I took it seriously every week. Like I'm doing my prep. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm always following the news. Like I didn't just come on to the show and just start talking out of my ass. Like I took it very seriously, and I know Lepore did as well, to bring you guys like the most, the best information, to make it as entertaining as possible. And like I said, I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for following along over the last 5 years. And I just want to reiterate this. Like, listen, nothing bad has happened. We're not ending this because like Lepore and I hate each other, or there's something terrible happening in our personal lives. Like, listen, we have very busy personal lives and there's a lot of things going on. And, one of the things with doing content, you have to be consistent. And I just feel like you've probably noticed even over the last little bit, we haven't been as consistent as we were maybe when we first started the show. And if we're not going to maintain that consistency, it's hard to continue the podcast when you're not maintaining that same level of consistency and you're not giving the viewer exactly what they want. And I'm sure there's going to be people out there who are pissed that we're ending this thing. But like I said before, I don't want to say that this is the official end of GFP. We could be back in the future, but as of now, this is going to be our final episode. And listen, you can still follow us on other platforms. I always link it down in the description. I could post another comment in the comment section as well, where you can find us, whether it's on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. I even have another personal YouTube channel for that matter that you can follow me on. So there's different places that you can follow us, follow our takes on the Leafs and other things like that. But that's going to do it. What a ride, man. I wouldn't have wanted to do this podcast with anyone else. So,
Bruno, love you, buddy.
Lepore.
Love you, buddy.
It's been a ride, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 169 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. I'm not going to go through the usual spiel of liking and subscribing and all that stuff. You can do that if you want.
Do it. Yeah,
but this is the last episode. Once again, thank you guys for going on this ride with us. We built an amazing community here of passionate hockey fans, passionate Leaf fans. And, we'll keep things going. Maybe it's not going to be on this specific YouTube channel, but, we're going to keep that passion burning And hopefully the Leafs actually win a Stanley Cup. And then maybe we'll make a triumphant return to the airwaves.
Yeah,
but,
the Dynasty series.
Exactly. But listen, it's been amazing. Lepore, I love you, man. Thank you for doing this with me for the last 5 years. And thank you to all of our fans out there who followed along. We love you and thank you from the bottom of our heart. That's going to do it for the GFP podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, everyone. Go Leafs, go.